I met Daniel in college. We became friends instantly, always hanging out together. Our friend group was tight, and Daniel and I were practically inseparable. One night, we went to a party at a friend's house. After a long evening of drinking and loud music, most people left. Daniel and I decided to crash at his place. It was closer, and I was too tired to head home. His apartment was small, with 2 bedrooms. The main one was his, and the second was barely used unless someone needed to sleep over. That night, Daniel went to bed first, too drunk to keep his eyes open. I stayed behind, cleaning up the mess in the living room before heading to bed. As soon as I switched off the lights, the silence felt suffocating. The contrast from the loud party to this eerie stillness made my skin crawl. Just as I was about to reach the bedroom, I heard a strange gagging sound. Alarmed, I rushed inside. Daniel lay on the bed, eyes wide open, frozen in place. He was staring at the farthest corner of the room, his body stiff as a board. It looked like he was trying to move, but he couldn't. "Daniel, what's wrong?" I shook him, panic rising in my voice. "Say something." His gaze slowly shifted to me, his eyes growing even wider. It was a look of sheer terror. I grabbed my phone to call for help when, all of a sudden, Daniel let out a huge gasp and bolted upright. His body trembled as he struggled to catch his breath. "What the hell just happened? Are you okay?" I asked, my heart racing. "Water. I need water," he muttered. I ran to the kitchen, filled a glass, and handed it to him. He downed it in one gulp. Minutes passed before he finally spoke. "It was sleep paralysis," he said, rubbing his face. "I haven't had an episode in years." "Sleep paralysis?" I asked, still shaken. "Yeah. It's when your mind wakes up, but your body stays frozen. You can hallucinate too. It's terrifying, but it's nothing serious." I'd heard of sleep paralysis before, but seeing it happen in real life was different. That blank, horrified expression on his face, something about it unsettled me. Still, we moved on. Daniel brushed it off, and we never mentioned it to our friends. A few weeks later, after another night of drinking, we got into an argument. It escalated in front of everyone, making things awkward. I stormed off and locked myself in the guest room, unwilling to talk to him. That night, I cried myself to sleep. At some point, I woke up. The room was dark, but something felt off. Then I noticed it. The door was wide open. I was sure I had locked it. A chill ran down my spine. Before I could react, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps just outside the room. My instincts screamed at me to get up, to check. But when I tried to move, I couldn't. I was paralyzed. My breath quickened. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I could see everything, feel everything, but my body refused to respond. Then I saw it. A skeletal, bony hand gripped the wall outside the doorway. My stomach twisted in terror. A dark figure began to creep in, emerging from the shadows. It had no face, just a pitch-black void where features should be. But its eyes, they were large, yellow, glowing orbs. No pupils, no whites, just hollow, soulless yellow. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked up. Then it grinned. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged, rotten teeth. Blood dripped from its gums as it slowly leaned into the room. Then, footsteps. A new sound approached from the hallway. Just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. I shot up with a scream. "Sam! Sam! Open the door!" Daniel's voice boomed from the hallway. He was banging on the door. I turned to look. The door was locked. Somehow I managed to stumble out of bed, my body weak with fear. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door. The moment Daniel saw me, my vision blurred, and I collapsed. When I woke up, sunlight filled the room. Daniel sat beside me, his face pale with worry. "What happened last night?" he asked. I told him everything. about the paralysis, the footsteps, the creature with yellow eyes. As soon as I mentioned the eyes, his expression changed. His face turned white. "Are you sure? You saw yellow eyes?" "Yes, why?" He hesitated, swallowing hard before speaking. "There's something I didn't tell you that night." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "The night you saw me frozen in my bed." He took a deep breath, his voice shaking. "I didn't just hallucinate. I saw him too." I stared at him, my body stiffening. When I was 13, I had my first sleep paralysis episode. At first, it was just a weird, out-of-body feeling. But then, I started seeing him. The dark figure, the yellow eyes, the grin. He paused, hands trembling. I went to therapy, took medications. Eventually, the hallucinations stopped. "Until that night," I whispered. Daniel nodded. "I saw him again. He was standing in the corner of my room, watching me. But when you walked in, he was right behind you." A deep silence filled the air. "But that's not possible," I stammered. "Hallucinations aren't supposed to be shared." Daniel looked at me, his eyes filled with fear. "I know." Neither of us had an answer. We didn't talk about it again, convincing ourselves it was just a coincidence. Until the last night I ever stayed in that apartment. I woke up, trapped in paralysis once more. My eyes darted around, expecting to see the figure in the corner, but there was nothing. Then, I heard a breath, right next to my ear. I turned my eyes. The yellow-eyed man was lying in bed beside me. I would have screamed if I could. He grinned, his blood-stained teeth inches from my face. I blinked, and he was gone. I gasped, sitting up, drenched in sweat. Desperate, I turned to Daniel, shaking him awake. "Daniel, he's here, wake up!" His eyes shot open. Then, his hands shot forward, wrapping around my throat. Daniel was strangling me. I struggled, my lungs burning for air, my vision darkened. And then, just like that, I woke up. It had all been part of the paralysis. I left the next morning. I never stayed in that apartment again. Daniel and I drifted apart. It's been 7 years and I haven't heard from him since. But I still wonder, how did we both see the same thing? And if it wasn't a hallucination, then what was it?